is located and to which we have come today to remark its position in the history of black people throughout the world. Minister Henderson is Minister of Tourism et al., and so it's my pleasure to welcome you to the podium to bring greetings.
Good morning, all. Allow me to adopt the protocol already established, but to recognize in our presence the Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Marcella Liebert, our esteemed Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, and our guest of honor and featured speaker, Dr. Julius Garvey, heir and son of the Right Excellent Marcus Messiah Garvey. This morning, I am deeply honored to deliver greetings from my home community of constituency number 2, covering the areas that have been the birthplace of champions. This community has, in fact, produced trailblazers and icons in all areas. And it is no coincidence that it was the site selected to construct the headquarters of the St. Kitts Mutual Improvement Society. The St. Kitts Mutual Improvement Society, founded in 1901, has played a pivotal role in shaping the cultural, intellectual, and social landscape of our beloved federation. The IMS was more than just a literary society. It was a platform for the Black intelligentsia to discuss, to debate, and engage in intellectual pursuits. With a focus on mutual improvement, it embodied an ethos of Ubuntu, a distinctly African principle that says, I am because we are. The MIS was focused on building community and working together to improve our conditions, to display compassion and kindness and brotherly love and, of course, sisterly love in the interest of the progressive welfare of our people. As we reflect on the history of the MIS, we are reminded of the power of community, each one reaching one, action to promote intellectual and cultural growth. Marcus Messiah Garvey's speech emphasized the importance of self-awareness, education, and individual empowerment. His message of taking control of our lives, developing our minds, and striving for greatness resonates deeply with our vision as a sustainable island state. Our tourism strategy is built on the principles of sustainability, community engagement, and environmental stewardship. We recognize that our islands are not just beautiful destinations, but also fragile ecosystems that require careful management and protection. That is why we have implemented initiatives to reduce our carbon footprint, promote eco-tourism, and support our local communities. One of our flagship initiatives is the Venture Deeper campaign, which encourages our visitors to explore beyond our beaches and our sand and engage with our vibrant culture and rich history. This campaign promotes community-based tourism initiatives, authentic cultural encounters, and sustainable practices that benefit both our visitors and our locals. By embracing Ubuntu, we strive to create a more equitable, a more sustainable, and enriching experience for both travelers and our host communities. We seek to promote tourism practices that benefit both the environment and our local communities, and support the preservation of local traditions and practices. So as we look to the future, we are resolutely committed to converting our nation into a sustainable island state, with a focus of implementing sustainable practices across all our sectors. We believe that tourism can be and is a powerful tool for economic development, especially for our people who call historic Bastille home. So let us continue to work to create a brighter future for tourism, one that is rooted in the principles of Ubuntu and promotes responsible and sustainable tourism practices. Let us strive together to create meaningful and authentic travel experiences that benefit our communities. Together, we can build a more sustainable and a more equitable tourism industry that benefits our people, our environment, and our economy. Let us together make Bastille beautiful once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for your greetings. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the unavailability of the Okola Tegumantine group. And I very much regret they're not being on this program, because I remembered as a young boy, while we were upstairs, and Minister Kondo would remember, learning ballroom dancing, the Okola Tegumantine group were downstairs practicing their culture, their drumming and dancing and their culture. It was the home, so to speak, of the Okola Tegumantine group. And they are an integral part of the activities of the MIS for quite a number of years. So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite Ms. Carla Astafan, Chair of the National Reparations Commission, to introduce our distinguished speaker this morning.
Your Excellency, Dame Marcella Liburd, Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, Your Excellency, Dr. Julius Garvey, and Honorable Marsha Henderson. Welcome, everyone. My duty is brief, so to everyone, thank you. The professional bio of Dr. Julius Garvey. Dr. Julius Garvey was born on September 17, 1933, in Kingston, Jamaica. He is the son of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and Amy Jacques Garvey. Dr. Garvey is a recently retired board-certified cardiothoracic and vascular surgeon who last practiced in the state of New York. Dr. Garvey is affiliated with the Northwell Health System, which is New York's largest healthcare provider, and was a clinical associate professor of surgery at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. He has been internationally schooled in England, Jamaica, the United States, and of note, he's a graduate of McGill University in Canada. Dr. Garvey has been on several educational and medical missions around the globe, where he lectured in such places as Ghana, Senegal, Mali, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Jamaica, Belize, Haiti, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. He is currently the
Morning, everyone. The prayer this morning will be by Reverend Selena Walton Charles of the Methodist Church, St. Christopher Christian Council. Reverend Charles.
Let us pray. Almighty Father of all creation, you are our eternal, wise God. We acknowledge that you have called all humanity to be stewards of this great federation. Today, O God, as members of this National Assembly, you have entrusted all, O God, the sacred duty of shaping lives of your people. As they gather to deliberate on matters utmost of great importance, Almighty Savior of peace, employ your divine guidance and fill this chamber. Grant them clarity of mind to understand the diverse needs and desires of every citizen. Remove from us all personal pride, biasness, so that our decisions may be guided solely by the pursuits of common good. It is written, Proverbs 11:14, for the lack of wisdom, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Great advocate, we pray that all may seek wise counsel, listen to one another with open hearts, and work together in unity. Let us remember the true victory is not about political gain, but it is in prosperity and in peace, well-being of all of this federation. May our words be truthful, our actions just, and our service selfless as we strive to serve the people in this federation. Have your own way. In Christ we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Charles. You will be seated. Madam Clerk.
Confirmation of minutes.
Deferred.
Messages from the Governor General.
There are no messages from the Governor General.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Just a few. Honorable members, my office is in receipt of notices of absence from a few members, particularly Senator Phillip, Senator Clark, and the Honorable Member for St. Christopher IV. The mentioned members will not be present for this morning's proceedings. That's the extent of the notices today.
Presentation of papers and of reports from committees. Petitions. Government notices. Unofficial notices. Questions. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers. Personal explanations. Motions relating to the business of the National Assembly and moved by a minister. Public business, bills, second reading.
I recognize the Honorable Member for St. Christopher VIII.
Yes, please. Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to lead the debate of and have read for a second time in this Honorable House the bill shortly entitled the Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, this bill gives our country a practical tool to attract foreign direct investment and create long-term job opportunities while protecting our environment. It is a framework for doing big projects the right way. Madam Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis has set a clear direction through our Sustainable Island State Agenda, SISA for short. SISA, the Sustainable Island State Agenda, is our plan to make life better and safer for our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis in this changing world. Of course, this addresses multiple issues at the same time. This was developed, of course, after long months of consultation and bringing experts in the field to have collaboration, which has led us to this strategy, this overall national strategy. This was presented for the first time to the United Nations as a demonstration to the world of how serious St. Kitts and Nevis is with respect to sustainable development. Madam Speaker, SISA, the Sustainable Island State Agenda that we have been speaking of for some time now, this agenda sits on 7 pillars. The pillars are water security, and I want to thank the Minister with responsibility for water for his strong performance, and we are getting to the point where here in St. Kitts we will be returned to 24/7 water. Energy transition, and we are on the path with the geothermal that is in Nevis and also developing other sources of renewable energy, and these things are actually on the way, Madam Speaker. Food security, expanding our network of producing here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we would have had significant increase in output, whether it be from marine resources or from the land. Sustainable industry, sustainable settlements as we expand our housing outlay along with other types of settlements. The circular economy, as we have stepped up, Madam Speaker, with our recycling processes, and I want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan, for really supporting us. And they just recently put out a document that showed that we have been collecting thousands upon thousands of pounds of garbage that would normally go to the landfill. But as a result of this, the landfill is spared, and we are now in a full thrust of recycling more and more. And encourage our people, of course, to do their own recycling at home. And social protection through a number of things that we have done with respect to increasing the minimum wage and increase in the minimum amount for social security, increase in salaries, expanding social safety net, such as medical fund for children, making college free for our people, so that all these things together can make sure that our people have the best opportunity to live the best life here in St. Kitts and Nevis. That is just a background, Madam Speaker. Therefore, that is to show that this is not a fly-by-night type of strategy. This has been well thought out, and it is, of course, accepted not only in St. Kitts and Nevis as a serious approach to dealing with sustainable development, but it has been accepted across the region, and as I said, was presented to the United Nations. This bill is historic, Madam Speaker, and this is, of course, in keeping, as I said before, with our Sustainable Island State Agenda, because it is the first piece of legislation to weave all 7 pillars directly into a law. It says in black and white that any special sustainability zone must advance multiple pillars, so our development strengthens people and planet together. That is how we build a truly sustainable island state. Madam Speaker, why do we need special sustainability zones? Because we must diversify our economy and bring in high-quality foreign direct investment. Tourism and construction matter, but we cannot depend on any single sector. We have been saying for some time that we need to diversify our economy and to lessen significantly and urgently our heavy dependence on the CBI. We need new engines, clean energy, resilient housing, agri-tech, health and education services, green manufacturing, logistics and technology. To do that, investors, local and overseas, need clear rules, fast timelines and certainty. Our citizens need the same certainty that development will deliver jobs, skills, better services, and of course, not short-term hype, Madam Speaker. This bill creates a controlled constitutional way to do both. Madam Speaker, what is a special sustainability zone? Think of it as a legally designated area, large or small, where a developer agrees to meet strict standards and timelines. And the government agrees to provide clear, predictable conditions. The rules are tailored to the project, but the guardrails are firm, Madam Speaker. And I want to say that again, the guardrails are firm. Sustainability targets, climate resilient infrastructure, investment protection, and respect for our Constitution. It is a deal with discipline, Madam Speaker. I want to stress that. Madam Speaker, what will a zone have to deliver? The bill sets hard tests up front before any agreement is signed. A zone must show an independent economic analysis forecasting long-term jobs, investment, and revenue for our people. It must have concrete plans for reliable water, at least 70%. It must have concrete plans for reliable water, at least 70% renewable energy, strong waste reduction and recycling, hurricane and earthquake resistant buildings, public safety and emergency response, fair dispute resolution, and available health services. The developer must prove financial and technical capacity so we do not sign up to wishful thinking. There are conditions precedent: no plan, no capacity, no sustainability, no zone. Madam Speaker, how will governance work? Each zone is governed by a development agreement negotiated by the government, approved by cabinet, and if the zone is in Nevis, with the Nevis Island Administration as a co-signatory. The agreement sets the exact boundaries, timelines, milestones, and house rules of the zone. It's bylaws. It can include tailored zone laws for operations, but here is the key. Any such laws only take effect if this National Assembly and, where relevant, the Nevis Island Assembly ratifies them. That keeps democratic oversight at the center. Parliament remains, of course, that gatekeeper. Madam Speaker, what about sovereignty? The bill is crystal clear. Core sovereign powers stay with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, full stop. Clear, I want to say that again, Madam Speaker. The bill is crystal clear. Core sovereign powers stay with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. No private agreement can touch. No private agreement, Madam Speaker, can touch them. What about concessions? The bill allows targeted concessions on government charges, but they are not automatic and never a precedent. They must be proportional to public benefits that the zone will create. The zone will create jobs, investments, local linkages, exports, community amenities, and they can differ from project to project. If a developer delivers more, they can earn more. If they deliver less, they get less. Again, Madam Speaker, discipline is important. Madam Speaker, what ensures delivery? First, time is of the essence. Agreements must include milestones with consequences if the developer misses them. Second, once an agreement is executed and any required ratification is passed, a formal order is published in the Gazette declaring the zone. That order can be amended or revoked if the developer fails to perform. Third, the Prime Minister or Premier may establish independent oversight bodies to vet proposals and monitor compliance. In short, trust but verify. Madam Speaker, how does this advance the Sustainable Island State agenda? This bill is CISA, Sustainable Island State, by design. By law, zones must advance multiple pillars, as mentioned before. That means reliable water systems, renewable energy at a scale, sustainable food systems, green industry, tourism, and climate-resilient communities, circular economy practices, and built-in social protection, like access to health services and fair dispute resolutions. This is not development that takes, it's a development that gives back and lifts people up. Madam Speaker, why is this attractive to investors? Because it offers clarity and speed without cutting corners. Investors value legal certainty, enforceable contracts, and clear sustainability standards. They also value communities where talent wants to live safe, clean, modern, and connected to nature. The bill signals that St. Kitts and Nevis is open for business on our terms for our people. Madam Speaker, what we learn from other countries around the world, special economic zones have helped transform economies when they were well designed and well governed. For example, the colon-free zone in Panama, started in 1948, is now the largest free trade zone in the Western Hemisphere, with commercial movement of approximately $18 billion in 2021 and thousands of firms serving Latin America and the Caribbean. Great example. Mauritius used the free port and services zone to shift from sugar to a diversified economy, logistics, finance, ICT, and to cut unemployment. The Export Processing Zone, EPZ, initiated in 1971, by 2001 accounted for approximately 26% of GDP, 36% of employment, and 66% of exports. The Costa Rica Free Trade Zone regime, started in 1990, underpins Costa Rica's foreign direct investment-led upgrade into medtech and advanced manufacturing, with over 250,000 direct and indirect jobs, many times our own population here. Medical devices were approximately 44% of goods exports in 2024. If these developing countries in the Southern Hemisphere can have such historic economic successes utilizing special zones, why can't we? Madam Speaker, what could our own special sustainability zone mean for our people? It means more construction jobs in the short term and more permanent jobs in operations such as in the energy sector, water, transport, hospitality, healthcare, education, the maintenance, IT, security, and retail. I have to slow down a bit. It means apprenticeships, on-the-job training, and opportunities for local contractors and service providers. It means stronger local agriculture, feeding hotels and residents, and a market for local products, from furniture to food to creative industries. It means better infrastructure that is built to last, and communities planned for safety, beauty, and access to green spaces. It also means higher standards. Zones must be hurricane ready, water secure, energy independent, and clean. They must sort their waste, recycle, and respect our natural beauty. There must be places where families feel safe and proud to live and work. Madam Speaker, how will communities be protected? First, through Parliament's ratification, power and ongoing oversight. Second, through the bill's hard requirements on sustainability and services. Third, through enforceable commitments in each development agreement, timelines, milestones, penalties, and if necessary, revocation. Fourth, through transparency. When a zone is declared, The order sets out the boundaries and key particulars to the public, and key particulars so that the public knows what is being done, where and why. This has to have a strong public relation component. Madam Speaker, how does this fit our broader economic strategy? Our government is pursuing a balanced diversification plan, modernize tourism, scale renewable energy and water security, the agribusiness, expand healthcare, education and professional services, and enable technology and green manufacturing. The Special Sustainability Zone Framework is a way to bring these pieces together so that infrastructure, investment, and job arrive in a coordinated and accountable package. It complements financial reforms, education and skills training, and our push for easier, faster business processes. Colleagues, this bill does three big things. It aligns investment with our Sustainable Island State agenda by law, not by promise. It protects the public interest through Parliament's ratification, constitutional guardrails, and real enforcement tools. It sends a confident message to responsible investors that St. Kitts and Nevis is ready to partner at a higher standard and to move at the speed of opportunity. Let me be clear about what this bill does not do. It does not hand over our sovereignty. It does not create loopholes for bad actors. It does not guarantee concessions or free rides. On the contrary, it strengthens the rule of law by requiring that zone-specific rules and concessions come through this House in full view of the people and in accordance with our Constitution. Madam Speaker, our children deserve an economy that can weather storms, literal and economic. They deserve communities with steady power and clean water, homes that can withstand hurricanes, good jobs that lead to careers, and green spaces where they can play. Passing this bill is a step toward that future, a step where economic development and the protection of the environment and sustainability are all in one framework. We have a chance, Madam Speaker, to be first movers in the Caribbean with a modern sustainability-anchored zone framework, learning from global success stories, avoiding the mistakes, and tailoring the model to our size, our constitution, and our values. If we implement with rigor and integrity, this can be a turning point, unlocking quality foreign direct investment, building resilience, and raising the standard of living across St. Kitts and Nevis. Madam Speaker, and honorable members on all sides, this is a transition in our development here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Let us put our Sustainable Island State agenda into action, attract the right kind of investment, and build a sustainable island state together for generations to come. Madam Speaker, I think that statement was clear, and therefore I may please you, and I give the opportunity to our other members to intervene in the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 9.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning to colleagues on the government side and certainly on this side of the aisle as well. I rise very briefly to lend my support to this bill. Of course, Madam Speaker, you will recall that on the first reading of this bill, I also rose to second, and that was my way of signaling my support for this particular bit of legislation. If you may ask, the House may ask, the public may ask, why would I support? It is because I feel that over the past 3 or so years since this new government has been at the helm, I have been a consistent voice in this National Assembly for a diversification of our local economy. I have been a consistent voice asking for novel ideas and innovation to move us away from our heavy dependence on citizenship by investment. I believe that the signs are clear all around us that the citizenship by investment goose that has laid the golden eggs for us for the past 2 decades, that there are some serious headwinds, Madam Speaker, involving that particular sector. It is said that when the forecasters tell us that there's a system coming off the coast of Africa, that is a good indication that we ought to prepare ourselves. And I believe the signs have been there from comments being made by the US government, by governments in the EU, by actions taken by the UK, and by the constant stream of negativity that has accompanied a lot of the commentary on citizenship by investment, that it behooves us as a country, government and opposition, to come up with new ways to take our economy forward and to ensure that we have sustainable development in our country. And so, having asked for the past few budget debates for sure that this government moves with greater alacrity to diversify the local economy, I welcome this type of initiative because I believe that it does create an opportunity if we can find the right partners to develop areas of the country in a sustainable way and to promote jobs, to promote, of course, foreign direct investment, to promote GDP growth, and to lead to the type of development that takes us to the next level. If you look at the history of this country, and I won't go back to the colonial past too far, except to say that at one point our economy and our country was based on sugar. We transitioned, certainly on the island of Nevis, from sugar to tourism, and that became the mainstay. In St. Kitts, there was a transition also to tourism, but also to citizenship by investment, and that then became a mainstay. You would realize, Madam Speaker, and I think the country would realize, that we have not really had a diversified economy for a very long time. That for the most part, our economy has been based on one thing or the other. And I know certainly on the island of Nevis during COVID, we felt it most acutely because with borders closed, our primary industry, which was tourism, shut down. And so our people suffered. I am a firm believer, and I think the lessons of COVID tell us that we must have a number of different strings to our economic bow, so that when one string bursts, that others can pay dividends for the advancement of our economy and to keep our people working and to keep our economy ticking. And so I have in the past talked about cannabis and that we need to move with greater alacrity. The cannabis debate has been a debate that was ongoing since I was in government, and I sat on those benches. I am now over here, and that debate is still ongoing. I feel that there are some areas that we need to tap into and to move with speed, at pace, to ensure that we have the necessary framework in place so that if, and I don't wish it, but if we have ultimately to turn our backs on citizenship by investment, that we have replacements that are there and that can sustain us, sustain our development, and sustain our people going forward. Now, the Prime Minister has said a lot of things as the mover of the bill. I don't think that there is any benefit in repetition. What I will say, however, Madam Speaker, is that the idea of special zones in a country isn't a new idea. As you have heard, the Prime Minister took us as far back as the 1940s in Panama. In Costa Rica, we had similar. We had similar in Honduras. But I just want to highlight one zone that I think all of us are very familiar with, and that is the Dubai. That in Dubai. I believe it is referred to as the Dubai International Financial Center, or DIFC. And the reason I mention Dubai is because everybody suddenly is in love with this idea of Dubai. Who ain't gone yet trying to go? And And I believe that it is that innovation of the DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Center, that assisted tremendously in moving the economy of Dubai forward. And just to give an idea, Madam Speaker, that based on my rudimentary research, the innovation that created the DIFC in Dubai in 2023, that has contributed, I'm advised, based on this research, somewhere in the region of 12%. I'm sorry, forgive me, just more than 13% of the United Arab Emirates GDP. And since the UAE GDP, they say, is in excess of $700 billion, then this looks like it's contributing somewhere in the region of $80 or so billion. That, I think, is instructive, because if you could have a single zone within the UAE contributing as much as 13% to the overall GDP of the United Arab Emirates, it tells us that there are models out there that we can look to that have worked. I also wanted to comment on the point made by the Honorable Mover that St. Kitts and Nevis is, as always, I want to emphasize that, St. Kitts and Nevis is, as always, stepping out ahead of the region. Whether it was CBI, way back in 1984, we not only stepped out ahead of the region, we stepped out ahead of the world, because we gave the world that idea. We are now again looking to innovate by saying, here's an idea that has worked elsewhere, but has not yet been put into practice and into effect in the English-speaking Caribbean to the extent that it can drive economic development and economic diversification in a way that we need it to do here in our country. And so, Madam Speaker, I feel that this, if done right, ticks the boxes of sustainability, of job growth, of economic diversification, certainly of an enhancement of our GDP, and it also means that we are stepping ahead of the region in terms of what we're seeking to do to achieve a sustainable island state. I like the idea of being first movers, because I think first movers tend to have certain advantages. It also, of course, puts a responsibility that you do it right, because it also means that others will be looking at us to see what we have done, how we have done it, and whether or not it has worked. And that is why it's important that we have the right partners to develop these types of zones and these types of initiatives. I particularly like as well, because the intention is that this legislation will apply to the island of Nevis. In fact, it provides at Section 10 the consent as required by the Constitution for this also to apply to Nevis. And I want to say to my constituents in Nevis and to the people of Nevis that there will be no declaration of any such zone on the island of Nevis without the involvement of the Nevis Island Administration. And there will be no development agreement on the island of Nevis without the involvement of the Cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration and the sign-off of the NIA. What I like about this structure is that it tells you that at every step of the way there are safeguards. I think the language used by the move was guardrails. But guardrails, safeguards, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They are the necessary safeguards to ensure oversight, to ensure that if a zone is declared on St. Kitts, naturally the government of the day would have those safeguards in place and that oversight. And similarly, in Nevis, the government of the day would have those safeguards and oversight. It also, in the structure of the bill, requires that matters concerning these zones, governance, development agreements, that they come to the Parliament. Now that is a quantum leap forward. And I want to emphasize that point, Madam Speaker. We have heard of a number of development agreements in this country. And the average parliamentarian far less the member of the public, has no idea what those agreements are, what they entail, what they provide for. This framework is saying that if there is any agreement with a developer, it must come to the Parliament. If it's in St. Kitts, it must come to the National Assembly, and if it is in Nevis, it must come to the Nevis Island Assembly as well. That is important because it says that the sunshine is bright, that nothing is going to be done in an opaque way. There's no under-the-table engagement. The public, the Parliament, and there's no more public a place than the Parliament of the country, will have a say because we'll be able to come in here and the people hear the pros and the cons, the cut and the thrust, the do's and the don'ts, the benefits and no doubt the demerits of whatever it is that is being proposed. And I like that framework very much because to me it underscores that this is a democratic process and an entirely open and transparent undertaking. Madam Speaker, if I can just look very quickly at the bill itself, which speaks to Section 5, conditions precedent to development agreements. And I want to couple that Section 5 with a reading also of Section 9. And the bill is a short bill. So it's not something that is overly extensive. But that Section 5, it says what are the conditions precedent. And basically what it is saying is that anybody who comes in wanting to do a zone needs to satisfy some conditions up front. One, they must present an economic analysis by a reputable economic advisory professional firm or institution forecasting that the proposed special sustainable zone is likely to generate long-term economic opportunities, create permanent employment, attract foreign and domestic investment, and generate revenue for the benefit of people of St. Kitts and Nevis for at least 10 years after operationalization. The zone developer shall present plans to develop the necessary infrastructure, utilities, and facilities within the special zone. I like that because it means there's no pressure on the federal government or the NIA to put infrastructure into the zone. They will have that responsibility. They must ensure and establish, remember these are preconditions, that over time there's no harm to the environment, people, or planet. The zone must be designed for comfort, luxury, and sustainability. Importantly, Madam Speaker, they must generate and supply reliable access to clean and safe water. Put differently, we don't expect that this zone is going to rely on the water supply. And so people out there who may be saying, well, these people are going to come and... No, they have to make provision for themselves. Look at what it says at 5.4. They must generate renewable energy. Secure, let me use the language, secure renewable energy for no less than 70% of the zone. All of these are preconditions that they must be able to establish. 5, they must minimize waste and promote the reuse and recycling of resources, fostering environmental sustainability. 6, they must be climate resilient and hurricane and earthquake resistant. 7, they must provide public safety and security services, rapid emergency response mechanisms. And what I like about number 9, they must provide health services. So again, the idea really is that these entities, these zones, are not designed to put any pressure on the local infrastructure or to put any pressure on the resources of the taxpayers. Put differently, they are supposed to come to add to, not take away from. And that is why I like, again, the scheme that is being suggested, because these are all conditions precedent. Now, why do I say we should read that with Section 9? Because at Section 9, it speaks to independent oversight bodies. And it says, for the benefit of Hansard, the Prime Minister with respect to the government or the Premier with respect to the Nevis Island administration may establish independent oversight bodies to receive and review applications from potential zone developers or to monitor zone developer compliance with the terms of any development agreement. So we see oversight at two levels. One, when people are applying, they want a special sustainability zone. It is saying that we should and can have an oversight body. If it's in St. Kitts, within the wheelhouse of the Prime Minister, sorry. If it's in Nevis, it's within the wheelhouse of the Premier. But there's an oversight body to look and see, listen, are these conditions precedent satisfied? How are you going to supply water? How are you going to supply electricity? How are you going to supply health care? What will be your dispute resolution mechanisms inside the zone, etc., etc. And then it also provides that where a development agreement has been entered into, this body can monitor compliance. So you see, you're building a dam before they come in. And then you are creating the framework now to monitor them after they're in. To say to them, well, you said that you would have your water, your solar system, whatever, your health system up. That is not yet up. That is the type of monitoring. So put differently, and I believe all of us in this room, if we're honest, have seen glorious developments announced, and then nothing or very little happens. Years down the road, nothing happens. This is designed to ensure that there is seriousness at the start. That is, before you come, make sure you could satisfy these requirements. And then having satisfied those requirements, if you get the go-ahead, there will be monitoring of you going forward to make sure that you deliver. I think that the scheme then that is suggested is quite ambitious, quite efficacious, and novel in terms of allowing us what we need to move the Federation forward. I have proposed an amendment to, I believe it is section 4. I suppose we will get to that when we get to committee stage. But I believe that these zones, Madam Speaker, and this is my view, that there ought not to be a proliferation of them within the Federation. That given our size, if we are going to designate an area as a zone, that we ought not to have multiples of these all across the country. And I feel as a result that one way to guard against that, we will be proposing from this side an amendment which says that no area intended to be subject of a development agreement shall, in the island of Nevis, comprise less than 500 acres, and in St. Kitts less than 750 acres. Put differently, I believe that if somebody has an acre of land, 5 acres of land, they ought not to be able to come and say they want to establish this type of zone on their acre. And I believe that's important because, as we have seen with the Citizenship by Investment program, when some people hear that there's money to be made, everybody starts to ask a favor. Could I get my thing registered under this scheme so that I can benefit? And sometimes it doesn't work to the interest of the country as a whole. So I feel these zones are intended to be a next big step. They ought to be large tracts, and those large tracts then we can identify. And for those out there who are listening, time doesn't permit, but if you're listening and you are interested, please look and see what the Dubai International Financial Center has done in Dubai for the development of that area. And I will highlight just one aspect of it. And I liked the fact that the Prime Minister made it clear that there's no surrendering of sovereignty here that's contemplated. Because in Dubai, what they did was actually created the DIFC. And the DIFC, like most economic zones, has its own rules. It even has its own governing law. So, for example, whereas in the rest of the United Arab Emirates, Islamic law may apply, within the DIFC, it is the English common law that applies. Within the DIFC, they have set up their own dispute resolution mechanisms, their own systems for arbitration, for the resolution of disputes. And parties, as I understand it, agree when they invest inside the DIFC that they'll be governed by these rules. It therefore means, Madam Speaker, that there is good precedent internationally where this idea has worked. And I believe if done right, I come back to my caveat, if done right, this could really become the new goose that lays some golden eggs for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I look forward, in my old age, to looking back on this day and saying, this was a good day for the country because we have, in fact, made a quantum leap forward in terms of creating for the country the necessary space, the necessary environment for a shift, a diversification of the local economy. And bearing in mind that the signs say that a storm is brewing off the coast of Africa. Maybe that's a bad analogy given the hurricane season. But given the suggestion that the storms in relation to CBI are brewing, it behooves us, Madam Speaker, as a parliament, I'm not talking about any government and opposition, because to me, we only have one St. Kitts and Nevis. And we know, and all of us on this side used to sit over there, so we understand that fortunes ebb and flow. The tide comes in and the tide goes out. And not because some fellows over there now smiling. Some of them used to be over here. And who knows what tomorrow brings. So I say that only to say that wherever you happen to be sitting today, what we ought to be trying to do as a parliament is to create the necessary environment for the country to flourish and for St. Kitts and Nevis to prosper. And I believe that other islands in the OECS and other countries in the Caribbean will be looking at us to see how these types of initiatives fare. And I say to our people, without fear of contradiction, that this little country here has always been a leader in the region. We have always been a leader. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, when I hear people calling us down, castigating us, cussing us, we are the worst, for their own purposes. That's the nature of our raucous democracy. But I remind everyone that St. Kitts and Nevis, I said it in here already, when we mandated mandatory secondary education, up to quite recently, other countries in the Caribbean did not have it. When we introduced Social Security and those types of safety nets, some of the things that we do here in St. Kitts and Nevis, other countries, including those who are nearby, can't believe that these are the things that we do to take care of our people. Social safety nets, the various developmental initiatives that we've taken, citizenship by investment, and now we hope the special sustainability zone. So, I support, I said I would not be long, and so I will rest my case there, and certainly hope that the government will take on board some of the amendments that we hope will come as we look at the next phase of this bill and this bill moving through. But I certainly would want to rise to wish the bill safe passage through this Honourable House. May it please you.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for Nevis 9. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 10.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And let me greet you and greet all of us who are here in this Honourable House. I rise as well, Madam Speaker, to make a brief presentation to the bill before this Honourable House, the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025. And as I rise to make my brief intervention, let me say from the onset that I have looked at the bill, I have read the bill, and the bill will also have my support. Madam Speaker, as I examined the bill and I looked at the bill, I thought that this bill creates an environment for attracting foreign and domestic investment. And of course, Madam Speaker, I believe that with this bill, and once it is passed, I think St. Kitts and Nevis will continue to be a beacon for the rest of the region. Madam Speaker, of course, both the government, the federal government that is based here in St. Kitts, as well as the Nevis Island administration, there have been numerous accusations leveled saying that we are not attracting any foreign direct investment and we're not bringing anything new to the table. But I believe that this bill will afford both the federal government and the Nevis Island administration the opportunity or opportunities to attract foreign direct investment and, of course, to continue to diversify our economy. Of course, if COVID-19 didn't teach us anything, it have taught us the lesson that we ought to try as much as possible to diversify the economy. And of course, the bill gives both the federal government and the Nevis Island administration that opportunity. And that is spoken to in Section 4, where it says authority to enter into development agreements. It speaks to the Prime Minister. It speaks to the Cabinet of the federal government. It speaks to the Premier, and it speaks to the Cabinet of the Nevis Island administration. And, Madam Speaker, I think it is incumbent on all sitting governments, whether it is the government in Bastia, whether it is the government on Nevis, to ensure that we provide that kind of environment to attract more investment and, of course, to move the island forward and improve and increase the standard of living of our nationals and residents. I just want, in my brief presentation, Madam Speaker, to highlight just a few sections. In Section 3, the objectives of the Act. And I think it is important that these be highlighted. In particular, I'm going to highlight just a few. In A, it says, promote sustainable development in St. Christopher and Nevis, which coexist in harmony with nature for generations to come. And of course, I've been speaking a lot of our sustainable island state. In B, it says, to enable the establishment of special sustainability zones through development agreements to facilitate long-term economic opportunities, create permanent employment, attract foreign and domestic investment, and generate revenue for the benefit of the people of St. Christopher and Nevis. If we could go down to D, it says, to enhance both the region and St. Christopher and Nevis' prominence as an extraordinary investment and lifestyle destination. Here again, we are highlighting St. Kitts and Nevis as a prominent destination for investors. If we look at E, it says to outline principles for the establishment of zone governance within special sustainability zones, which accord with the Constitution and which facilitate operational discretion in accordance with international best practices. So whatever we are doing here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker, it will accord with international best practices. If we go to G, it says to promote the developments that advance multiple of the 7 pillars of sustainable development to which St. Kitts and Nevis has committed it as part of its sustainable island state agenda. And of course, these were already highlighted by the mover, speaking about the energy transition, food security, water security, and so on. And so, of course, whatever we are doing, Madam Speaker, this bill is well-intentioned. Of course, we are speaking to attracting investment, but at the same time, we are ensuring that we look at that sustainability aspect, which is, of course, very important as we move towards becoming the first sustainable island state in the region. Madam Speaker, I will just also briefly highlight in Section 5, which speaks to the conditions precedent to development of the agreement. And here again, look at number 1, will endure over time without causing harm to the environment, people, or the planet. Here again, Madam Speaker, the bill continues to highlight the issue of sustainability. And of course, it says they are designed to comfort, luxury, and sustainability. It goes on in C to say, the zone developer shall demonstrate that it has or has organized the capacity, financial and technical capacity. Because of course, many times, Madam Speaker, we have investors come, they have some very nice and flowery talk, but when you look at the bottom line, sometimes the investors come and they do not have any money. And so it's more about talk. This will ensure when the investors are coming that they are examined. And we will ensure that the investors have the capacity and most of all, the financial ability to do what they're supposed to do. So, Madam Speaker, I think, as I said, the bill is well-intentioned, and I think the intention of the bill is to ensure that we have continued growth and development in our Twill Island Federation. And I want to take this opportunity to just say that I support the bill, and I want to wish this bill safe passage to this Honourable House. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for Nevis 10. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 11.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my contribution to this bill before the Honourable House. And before I start, I will say that when I saw this Special Sustainable Zones Authorization Bill and what the intention is, I said, even though I am under the weather today, I have to be here to lend my voice. Because over the years, we have been seeking, as the member for Nevis 9 would have suggested, that we've been seeking to diversify the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have depended on, in the case of the Federation, the CBI program. In the case of Nevis, over the years, we have depended on the financial services sector. And I can recall there was a point in time where there were 14,000 companies registered. I don't know what it is now. But the interesting thing is that those companies were not necessarily physically on the ground in Nevis, but it is what you call, or they're what you call a shell company, employing perhaps 2, 3, maybe up to 10 persons, or maybe even 1 person. And so the benefits to be derived from such investment was not necessarily there. And of course, we have been depending on perhaps pushing the marijuana industry, which hasn't gotten off the ground, and other areas that we have sought to pursue. Tourism, you have heard before, is one of those fragile industries, and of course, member for Nevis 10 would have mentioned COVID-19 and what it meant to us then, back in 2020. This type of investment, though, is meant to create permanent jobs, physical construction on the ground, or physical companies within this special zone. And so that is why I had to come here today to lend my voice, because this can certainly be one of those game changers for us. And the member for Nevis 9 would have made it clear once it is done properly. And of course, we have to execute this particular bill, or this particular transition that we're trying to make in such a way that it is beneficial in the end. I will say to you, Madam Speaker, that we have seen different types of economic zone being proffered by other countries. I believe Antigua Barbuda have a special economic zone which speaks to businesses. Anguilla, I believe, is pursuing a exclusive economic zone that speaks to marine life. And other countries such as near to us, Bonaire, St. Bart's and other countries near to us have been pursuing something different than what we are pursuing. This particular special sustainable zone authorization bill speaks to something much larger. It speaks to an area that will have quite a number of things involved in terms of pursuing development of infrastructure such as water, road, housing, energy, transport, etc. I spoke about long-term employment, for example, and other areas that are mentioned in the bill. So it therefore means that we're going steps further than what our regional partners have done, which is commendable on the part of the government and this parliament for sure. I have said in the past that anything that has to do with the advancement of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, as a member of this parliament, I will lend my support, and that is why I had to be here today, even though I am somewhat under the weather. But those who seek to lead this island or this country, well, they have chosen not to lend their voice and have gone. But that's okay. People must see these things for what they are and to look at the leadership that is being presented from this house, this honorable house, towards the development of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It is meant to advance our people and to get away from the fragilities that exist in certain sectors that we have been pursuing. For example, I want to say this, Madam Speaker, that we have sold quite a number of passports through the CBI program. Some may say it's in excess of 50,000. I don't know. But be that as it may, some persons would have made contribution to the SIDF. And those persons just made an investment in terms of dollar amount, and then they've gone along their merry way. It has been proffered here in this parliament that we should find these people and see in which way we can get them to come and invest in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. A lot of them have money to take up $250,000 and buy a passport. Suggests to me that person have some worth and some wherewithal to invest. And so if we are to look at this particular bill today, what can we do as a country to reach out to persons of such sort to make investment into this country and the development of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis? So that being said, Madam Speaker, I want to say to you that this particular bill, even though you'll hear a lot of debate out there, persons would have to equip themselves with this bill and understand what is in this bill so that they can make, sensible arguments and sensible discussions. One of the things that we have done with this bill is to ensure that we do not lose our sovereignty as a country. And in section 6, subsection I, it speaks and I read, provide for express acknowledgement that the following government matters are within the exclusive legislative, governance, and administrative domain and control of the government of St. Christopher and the Nevis Island administration, where applicable, whether within the special sustainable zone or otherwise located in St. Christopher and Nevis. And it speaks to 1, foreign affairs, including treaty negotiation, execution and ratification. Those stays with the government of St. Christopher and the Nevis Island administration. Military defense, citizen and residents, election related to the National Assembly or Nevis Island Assembly, and registration of voters, and jurisdiction of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Caribbean Court of Justice and Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, were stipulated as exclusive jurisdiction by the Constitution. And of course, lastly, any obligation, rights, or responsibility not transferred to any other person or entity under the Constitution. So it therefore means that even though you have this special sustainability zones authorization or special sustainable zone, it doesn't mean that this zone will be operating in an ad hoc way where they make their laws, they make their rules, but they must be guided by the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis. But the intent is to make it a bit easier for this particular zone to flourish in terms of investments, curtailing or cutting all of the red tapes that are necessary to get approval for permits and the like. So those would be handled accordingly. But in terms of our sovereignty, it is still within the ambit or within the hands of the government of St. Christopher and the Nevis Island administration. So the arguments that are being made, because some arguments are out there, and it is just that sometimes persons speak from a position of lack of knowledge, and they make such arguments. But this bill is very clear as to what is envisaged in terms of what it is meant to do. And so I am pleased to lend my support to this particular bill. And so, Madam Speaker, if I were to say at this point in time, I don't want to repeat all that have been said before, but my voice being given to this particular bill is important, because I know that this can lead to a transformation in this federation that is going to put us on a level and a pathway to development that we've been seeking to have, given the difficulties and challenges we've had in financial services, CBI program, and other areas. So with that said, Madam Speaker, I will not tarry anymore. I won't prolong any further, but this bill has my support, and I register that publicly, and so I say, may it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for Nevis 11. I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 1.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my brief contribution in support of the mover of the bill before this Honourable House, the Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, the bill is the government's attempt to continue the economic diversification of St. Kitts and Nevis, which was clearly outlined by the mover and in many cases the seconder. It is important for me, Madam Speaker, to support because it provides another option for development, which of course can augment the CBI, as we've heard it from just about everyone who have spoken thus far. And of course, this will be supporting and promoting construction and development that is on the ground. It is also, Madam Speaker, an indication that St. Kitts and Nevis is committed to sustainable development based on the 7 pillars that we have been using, and this of course allows the governments, because it's inclusive, both at the federal level and in Nevis, to consider large-scale projects which satisfy our development objectives. And I just glanced some of the amendments, and of course, Madam Speaker, those will be taken into consideration that both parties are aware of exactly what is expected. It was also articulated that special zone is nothing new, and the seconder made reference to the Dubai International Financial Center, which has the turbocharged development in Dubai. But every time I hear the word Dubai, Madam Speaker, I tend to chuckle, because I vividly remember when Dubai was introduced to this federation by our visionary former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas. The way how persons were operating made us feel as if Dubai is almost like you're going to hell. Now, Madam Speaker, I don't know if you have visited, I have not, but so many persons can't keep out of Dubai with all of the negativity that they themselves participated in. And if we are to use Dubai model, you could only imagine, Madam Speaker, all of the benefits that will come as a result. It also is an indication, Madam Speaker, that we are saying to the world that we are open for business, and the government, of course, is using and looking for any opportunity for new investment to drive growth and economic expansion. I am pleased, Madam Speaker, with the detailed bill before this honorable House. Just about any questions one might have, this bill will be able to answer. And I want at this time to commend all of the craftsmen and women, led of course by our Attorney General, for the hard work and the eyes for detail that will ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis continue to be the federation that the world will have their eyes on. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the honourable member for St. Christopher 1. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 6.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to make some very brief comments as I lend my support and the support of the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment, in particular, that I lead in the cabinet, and to also say that this is a very important step that we are yet again taking in this parliament to advance our own development as a country and as a people. The bill could not have come at a better time, mainly because we have been impacted in most recent times by a number of challenges that have taken place globally and which to some extent has thrown our own agenda for our development somewhat off course. And it is going to be important, therefore, that as we set sail for a new course, new direction, we want to make sure that we are facilitated in every way to achieve success. And so coming here today to debate, that is to have the second and the third reading of this bill shortly entitled the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 is of critical importance. Let us go back to maybe 300 years ago, if not before. There was cotton, there was sugar. Sugar, I think, replaced cotton and tobacco. A number of adjustments were made by our colonial masters at that time, passed in London, had the support here in the colonies, in the local legislatures, and established, therefore, for this country an economy that was based almost entirely on sugar. The time came when it became quite clear that sugar was not going to sustain the economic development of our country and would not take our people to the next level that we would have anticipated, seeing that the world was moving in a particular direction, where changes were being made not only in Europe, but also specifically in Africa, and naturally in the colonies which were here in the Caribbean region. A number of efforts were being made Laws were being passed anticipating that the sugar industry would one day come to naught. And so those who were before us, especially during the Labour administration of our national hero, Mr. Bradshaw and Southwell and France and those, they realized that as much as we were wedded to the sugar industry in our economic development, that was not sustainable. And laws were passed in this very parliament to ensure that, one, we would facilitate the development in the diversification of our economy by way of manufacturing, light manufacturing. And so a number of laws were passed to ensure that the enabling environment was created so that we can diversify away from sugar into other sectors, especially into light manufacturing. And so there was created, let us not forget that, there was created in this country a number of zones specifically to ensure that there was facilitation of the development of these new emerging industries, especially the manufacturing sector. And so a number of laws were passed, but then it became important, as you heard earlier, Nevis had diversified and transitioned away from sugar before us in St. Kitts. And so in this country, a number of laws were also passed to ensure that the tourism industry, the hotel tourism industry in particular, would be properly facilitated. And thus Nevis went way ahead in our federation, leading our federation in terms of tourism and hotel development. Laws were passed. Areas were identified. Special support was being provided by legislation. The Fiscal Incentives Act, for example. A number of bills, a number of laws that we use today to provide incentives, to give a number of support for investors in the hotel sector. The 20-year tax holiday period. All these were as a result of trying to establish a diversified economy away from our dependence on sugar and light manufacturing. Of course, it came to the point where that was not enough as well in terms of sustainability. And naturally, we saw what happened with the closure of the sugar industry eventually. But the good thing about it is that we already had a number of enabling pieces of legislation that made it easier for us to transition out of sugar completely. And I want to thank the people of this country that supported the Labour administration during the time when I was leading the administration, that we successfully moved out of sugar and moved into a new direction that our country, the economy of our country would eventually go. Today, of course, we are where we are. We have successfully transitioned. We said for St. Kitts and Nevis that the new thrust of the economy must be diversified agriculture. Sugar industry was there. The lands are there. Our people had always been in agriculture. And the enabling environment, therefore, by way of passing laws were established. Procedural licensing and all those laws would have been, to some extent, lending support to the fact that people should be able to grow their food and the various crops on land, whether their own or others lent or borrowed lent to them or leased to them, without having the fear of not only monkeys but people taking away their crops and selling it as if it is their own. And so we are again at a transition point in our country. We went into diversified agriculture. Move of the bill, the Prime Minister spoke earlier as to exactly what it is that is intended by way of making sure that the agriculture, crop-based agriculture, fishing, for example, utilizing completely the blue economy concepts, which are now being floated around, making sure that whether it is vertical or horizontal agriculture, agriculture must remain one of the important sectors that would continue to lead the development of our country. It provides labor, and it provides, as the mover of the bill indicated, to achieve one of the important goals, and that is to be able to feed ourselves, food security. And so that brings me now to where we are. We are being enabled by what is happening globally. At the United Nations level, a number of sustainable development goals have been identified, which every country in the world to some extent is subscribing to. If we are going to sustain our economic and social and other development, political development as well, we must be able to achieve a number of goals. And that is what we're doing here. What we're doing here today is to ensure that as we have identified what would be the mainstay of our economy and its development, diversified agriculture, hotel and tourism development, hospitality and tourism development, information communication technology, renewable energy being one of the important factors, one of the important one of the important industries, I would say, that would facilitate the achievement of a lot of these specific areas that we have identified for our sustainable development. Here in St. Kitts, we are seeing ICT as part of the services sector, hospitality and tourism services, international financial services, because we are laying the foundation over the years for us to transition away from dependence totally on agriculture, sugar agriculture, to diversified agriculture, but also to ensure that as we move with regard to even the manufacturing or industrial estate type of activities, it must be at a certain high technology level. ICT therefore becomes important. And so the manufacturing sector, the manufacturing zone that we already would have established, they are now being transitioned into other activities which we believe are critical for our own economic development. One of the important areas that we must be completely clear about is the role of the CBI. Because I'm getting the impression that we are saying that the CBI is an industry. It never was. Never was intended to be either. The CBI, when it was introduced back in 1984, having being able to pluck from the 1983 Constitution and the 1984 CPI, where that particular area of the Constitution gave you the right to grant citizenship under conditions. We utilize that strongly in the labor administration that I led to ensure that we had financing to transition the economy away from sugar agriculture, or diversified agriculture, I would say, into services, hospitality, ICT, international financial services, so that our people would be able to sustain their continued advancement and development in our country. The creation of the Whitegate development area was an initial attempt to do what we are doing here today. When Christopher Harbour was created out of the Southeast Peninsula, where not even 1 square foot of land was owned by the government, we had to put in place certain enabling laws and guidelines as to how that was going to be developed, so that the Southeast Peninsula will bring to St. Kitts and Nevis the type of support that was going to be needed as we transition the economy away from dependence on sugar to tourism and hospitality services. That is what is happening today in this parliament. A strengthening, making it more possible for us to transition the old economy, which was dependent upon sugar or agriculture, transitioned into services, hospitality, tourism, information communication technology, international financial services, to ensure that whatever is the leading sectors in the economy, that we would make sure that we can facilitate such by identifying zones in our country to make those possible and successful. And that is why today this piece of legislation is so critical. It is critical because it has taken the vision of our people, of our leaders over the years, further to achieving specific goals that have been now identified by the United Nations, which we subscribe to, the development goals, so that we can ensure that we can make our own contribution in the advancement of people generally, but specifically here in this country, Nevis and St. Kitts together. And so I support this piece of legislation. I believe that the time would come, therefore, as the Cabinet just a few weeks ago supported a submission that was made by the Whitegate Development Corporation for the Whitegate Development Area to be designated as a special development area. I believe, therefore, that as the framers of that kind of thinking come together, then they will be guided by what is being legislated in this parliament today. That the Whitegate Development Area might become one of the special sustainable development zones outlined with guidelines in this legislation as to how that can be achieved. It may not only be in St. Kitts, it might also be in Nevis, where such zones are identified and given the necessary legal support so that they can be done properly. I think a fundamental part of all of this is consultation. These cannot happen without appropriate consultation with the people and with the stakeholders who must be engaged, must be involved, because they would be the participants to achieve whatever goal is identified, whatever goal has been set to be achieved with these guidelines in the Special Sustainable Zones Authorization Bill. I therefore believe, Madam Speaker, that we have come a long way. We have moved from where we were to where we are and where we intend to go. The new economy that we are creating is one that is clearly identified by leading sectors. Again, I say, diversified agriculture, hospitality, well, services generally, hospitality being the leader, tourism, hospitality services, information, communication, technology services, and of course, international financial services, already of which Nevis has been a leader globally. What we are seeking here to do, therefore, is that if we want to identify physical spaces for these to be achieved, if we want to demarcate particular areas where we would have industries to achieve these goals, then we turn to a law that is being passed in this parliament today to guide and direct how that shall be done. I don't speak with those words. Thank you.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 6. I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8, the mover of the bill.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, once again, I rise to wrap up the debate on this bill, shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, first of all, let me thank members on both sides of the House, the government side and, of course, the opposition side, who have lent their voices, their insights when it comes to this bill. And to hear from the most senior in the Parliament and former Prime Minister, who would have been a fundamental architect, I would say, of the transition from sugar to where we are seeking to go, and to get a historical perspective on where we are heading. So this is in line with an overall trajectory to get our St. Kitts and Nevis on a path to a diversified economy, one that is sustainable, one where people are at the center, and it really deals with the development of all of our citizens. Better lives, so to speak, Madam Speaker, but in a sustainable way. And so this Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill gives us the legal framework for us to be able to achieve what we seek to achieve. And so I would like to thank all who contributed to this at this time. There's nothing much more to be said, Madam Speaker, and therefore I wish this bill safe passage. May it please you.
The question is that the bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to authorize and empower the Prime Minister with approval of Cabinet and, if necessary, the Nevis Island Administration to enter into development agreements for the establishment of special sustainability zones on real property within St. Christopher and Nevis, and to provide for related or incidental matters, otherwise known as the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 has been read a second time. Honorable members, before we move to committee stage, I wish to rise briefly, so the House will adjourn for 10 minutes. Those against? The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
The question is that the enacting clause stands part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title.
The question is that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House resumes. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise once again to report that the bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 has passed through committee stage with amendments. And I further move that the bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 be read a third time and passed into law. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Nevis 9.
I second the motion. Thank you.
The question is that the bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 be read a third time and passed into law. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to authorize and empower the Prime Minister with approval of Cabinet and, if necessary, the Nevis Island Administration to enter into development agreements for the establishment of special sustainability zones on real property within St. Christopher and Nevis and to provide for related or incidental matters, otherwise known as the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025 has been read a third time and passed into law. Next bill, please. I recognize the honourable member of St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, thanks again, and with your leave, I rise to lead the debate of and have read for a second time in this honourable House the bill shortly entitled Banking Amendment Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, just to put things in perspective, that these bills, these next two bills, they have been prepared in collaboration, of course, with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. These bills have been passed into law in most of the other countries within the currency union, and so we are seeking to catch up. But they have gone through significant deliberation, both from the bank's end and our Attorney General's office, and so I am here to make sure that St. Kitts and Nevis is in full compliance with the legal framework that is critically important for the success of the ECCB. May I pause? Speaker, can you give us a few minutes? Pause? Yes.
Madam Speaker, some information has come to us about the bill, and we would like, if possible, that the House stands suspended for an additional 3 minutes so that the government side may discuss it as it relates to the ECCB. Because it's in collaboration with others, there's some new information that has just been presented that might justify some actions with this bill. So if we can be afforded 5 minutes maximum.
House will rise briefly. House adjourns for 5 minutes.
For your indulgence and to let you know that we got some new information. As I said before, this bill is in collaboration with the ECCB, and we will address that matter in the committee stage. Madam Speaker, this bill strengthens the rules that keep our banks safe, fair, and accountable. And it equips our regulator, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, with modern tools to protect depositors, borrowers, and the wider economy. These changes are a result of thorough collective processes. The ECCB's legal and supervisory teams developed the proposals. They were discussed with our ministries of finance and other stakeholders, and critically, the ECCU Monetary Council agreed on them before this bill came to our Parliament. This bill is therefore the product of broad consultation and regional consensus, Madam Speaker. The ECCB plays a central role in safeguarding banking in the OECS. It licenses commercial banks, sets prudential standards, supervises their operations, and intervenes when necessary to protect the financial system. In a region where our economies are closely linked, a strong and independent ECCB ensures that banks across member states follow the same high standards. By modernizing the Banking Act, this amendment gives the ECCB sharper tools to prevent risky practices, keep fees fair, and resolve customer complaints more effectively and efficiently. For the everyday man and woman, this means easier access to fair financial services, better protection for savings, and more trust that the bank you choose will treat you right. The bill does 10 critical things, Madam Speaker. Updates definitions to match modern banking realities, allows banks to offer certain modern services with proper oversight, tightens rules for license revocation fairly but decisively, brings currency exchange counters under ECCB oversight, strengthens controls on profit distribution and lending to related parties, regulates outsourcing and property leasing, improves financial statement standards and disclosure to the public, bans shell banks and risky relationships with them, enhances risk-based supervision and gives the ECCB power to cap excessive fees, Madam Speaker, establishes a framework for fair treatment of customers. So this is customer-friendly. This is really geared to helping our people to be protected in the banking sector. So the bill refines what counts as a branch, exposure, and related party and introduces Bureau of Exchange. These terms define what falls under the law. For example, exposure now includes modern financial instruments, so the ECCB can fully assess risk. Related parties drawn more precisely to stop insider abuse. Bureau of Exchange is clearly defined so that currency exchange services are properly regulated. Banks, Madam Speaker, may be authorized to offer broker or dealer services, payment card services, investment management, and sell insurance as agents. These services are increasingly in demand and will now be clearly regulated. If the ECCB proposes to revoke a license, it must give notice, invite written objections, and consider them before deciding, except in the most serious cases when quick action is needed to protect the public. Banks must have ECCB approval to operate a Bureau of Exchange and must give notice before moving or closing one. There are penalties for ignoring these rules, which help ensure continuity and security in currency exchange services. Madam Speaker, dividends may only be paid from retained earnings. If a bank expects a loss, it must get ECCB approval before paying dividends. Lending to related parties must be approved by the full board once it reaches certain thresholds set by prudential standards. Loans to government or government-guaranteed entities are treated differently because they serve public purposes and carry different risks. ECCB approval is required before outsourcing critical banking functions or leasing bank property. This prevents risky arrangements that could undermine service or security. Banks must follow recognized accounting standards by any ECCB specified rules. If there's a delay in publishing audited statements, bank must explain the reason and new date publicly in the Gazette or on their website, in a local newspaper, and in every branch. Madam Speaker, this is about transparency and accountability. Operating a shell bank doing business with one or using another institution to provide services to one is prohibited. Physical presence is clearly defined, and there are strong penalties, including personal liability for directors. ECCB supervision will be targeted based on the risk each bank presents, and the ECCB can set maximum fees and charges to prevent excessive costs to customers. Banks must treat customers fairly, be transparent, keep proper records, ensure agents follow the rules, and avoid misleading advertising. The framework supports financial education, inclusion, and accessibility. Madam Speaker, these words are critically important. Financial education, inclusion, and accessibility. Complaint handling procedures will be standardized, and a financial dispute resolution commission will provide faster, simpler resolutions for banking disputes. Madam Speaker, the bill also ensures the necessary regulations can be made to give full effect to these measures. ECCB prudential standards and codes of conduct will have legal force, ensuring rules are enforceable and penalties apply for non-compliance. Madam Speaker, these reforms build on earlier updates, including 2023 amendments, and reflect both regional consensus and international best practice. The aim is simple, Madam Speaker: safer banks, fairer treatment for customers, greater accountability to the public. The financial world moves quickly, Madam Speaker, we all know. Our laws must keep pace carefully and with the public interest at heart. This bill achieves that. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I commend the Banking Amendment Bill 2025 to this Honorable House and ask for its support. Again, this, of course, would have been done in a collaborative way with the ECCB and stakeholders, and the public would have had an opportunity to see it as it was first read some time ago. Therefore, Madam Speaker, may it please you.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8, the mover of the bill. Is there another presenter? I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 3.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to second the motion before this Honourable House, which is for the second reading of the Banking Amendment Bill 2025, Madam Speaker. And I want to support the mover in saying that, of course, this is a bill that is the work in collaboration with our banking regulator, that is the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Madam Speaker, I can begin with the foundation. The Banking Act, as you would know, is not just another piece of legislation. It is a critical legislation. It is a rule book of sorts that keeps our financial system stable and trustworthy. It sets out who can be licensed, how licenses are granted and revoked, and the standards that every bank must meet to operate here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So it lays down the core prudential requirements: capital adequacy, liquidity, limits on large exposures, governance rules, and fit and proper standards for directors and shareholders, along with, of course, robust auditing, public disclosure, and, of course, very importantly, strong supervisory powers for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So, in short, Madam Speaker, it is the legal architecture that protects depositors. It protects the people and their business and their money. It maintains confidence and keeps our banking sector sound. Now, why does this matter, Madam Speaker? In everything, our economy runs on trust. There must be trust, whether it is payrolls being processed on time for small businesses, trying to secure loans, or families, let's say, paying off their mortgages, or citizens sending and receiving remittances from abroad. There must be trust in our banking system. It is the foundation upon which the economy relies. And a clear and modern act will give that type of trust, and it will give banks the certainty that they need to innovate responsibly, come up with new services, and be at the forefront of technology. The act will give the regulator the tools to act early when risks emerge, and it will allow for consumers to see and have transparency and the fair treatment that they deserve. Now, why now, Madam Speaker? The Banking Act, first enacted, this one I think in 2015, was ahead of its time. But in the last decade or so, the banking landscape has changed dramatically. Technology has transformed how services are delivered, mobile banking, online payments, digital wallets. Consumer expectations have also evolved. People want more services under one roof and greater transparency in fees, for instance. Global standards have tightened, especially around money laundering, corporate governance, and market conduct. And so through consultations, of course, with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Monetary Council, and our own Ministry of Finance, and as always, guidance from international financial bodies, the mover and we on this side now bring before this Honorable House a bill that seeks to close existing gaps and, importantly, align to international best practices, also prepares our financial sector for the realities of 2025 and beyond. So what are some of the highlights of the bill that the mover may have mentioned as well? I want to take this opportunity to highlight a few important clauses. If we look at Clause 4, expanded permissible activities. Section 10 now explicitly allows banks, under oversight, of course, to offer services such as broker-dealer functions, payment card issuance, investment management, and acting as agents for insurance products. This is important, Madam Speaker, because customers increasingly expect a one-stop solution. And so, as this bill seeks to bring these within a regulated perimeter, we can improve oversight while still letting banks compete effectively. If we look at Clause 5 in the legislation, which deals with the revocation of license, Section 14, if I have it right, yes, Clause 5, Section 14 of the Parent Bill, will now clarify the due process when revoking a license, the notice, written up objections, and considerations. But it also introduces a targeted carve-out for urgent cases where public interest requires swift action. So what we have here, Madam Speaker, is there is a balance of fairness to the institution and also rapid protection for the public. If we look at Clause 6, the Bureau of Exchange Oversight, this will introduce a new Section 19A, which requires prior central bank approval to operate a currency exchange counter and 60 days notice to relocate or close one, backed by $250,000 in penalty for breaches. So, Madam Speaker, given the cash-intensive nature of some of these types of services, tight oversight is essential to prevent illicit finance and to avoid sudden disruption to communities. And that is what these amendments in this particular clause are trying to do. If we look at Clause 10, and there are quite a number of clauses, but I'm just going to take a few. Section 53 in the Parent Act now requires central bank approval before a bank leases real or immovable property. What this does, Madam Speaker, is that it closes a loophole that could mask risky related party arrangements. So you must get ECCB, central bank approval, before a bank can lease real or immovable property. Doesn't stop the bank from doing it, but it just creates the oversight. Shell bank prohibition. The mover spoke about this. In Clause 14, a new part will be included which makes it illegal to operate as a shell bank or to have relationships with shell banks. It defines physical presence clearly and sets strong penalties, including for directors personally. So cannot hide behind the corporate veil. This is a direct safeguard, Madam Speaker, against anonymous banking and money laundering. Critical for our international reputation, and to include that we stay off of all black and grey lists. Madam Speaker, we can also look at Clause 16, which deals with market conduct supervision. Perhaps the most transformative change is that what they're attempting to do here is to create a comprehensive consumer protection regime under the ECCB, distinct from the General Consumer Protection Act, but specialized for banking. So now there is further consumer protection with a specialist, such as, of course, our central bank, the ECCB, to protect our consumers. And these are some of the things that would include. It will include, for instance, clear duties for banks, which include fair treatment, because banks must be held responsible as well to how they treat consumers. So there must be fair treatment. There must be transparent fees. You must know every fee that you're exposed to at the banks. Not when you do a transaction and you thought it would cost $10 and the fees come up to $35. So you must have transparent fees. There must be proper record keeping. There has to be compliant agents. There must be responsible advertising. So they can't fool persons in the way that they advertise their products. So this is specialized consumer protection for persons who use the banking services. And there must be access to basic bank accounts for vulnerable consumers. So somebody who is maybe vulnerable and has a small bank account, there must be protection for them. Because when someone has a small bank account and every month the fees coming out, by the time the year done, the small amount finish, we have to protect our people against those types of things. And so this bit of oversight, or rather market conduct supervision, to ensure that the banks are acting responsibly in the market is very important for a trusted banking system. In terms of market conduct supervision as well, it provides for strong oversight tools. So, mystery shopping. So, the bank can do mystery shopping. They're allowed to do that. Market examinations, mandatory refunds where consumers are harmed, and the power to publish fee comparisons. So this is all in an attempt to protect the consumer.
What is mystery shopping?
What's mystery shopping?
Should explain.
Mystery shopping is where somebody is allowed to go and effectively solicit a service to see if what either they're advertising is correct or to gather information, etc. So you can be a mystery shopper. So this provides the framework under which that can happen, as I understand it. This market conduct supervision in Clause 16 as well deals with the establishment of what is called a Financial Dispute Resolution Commission, giving consumers a faster, simpler, and binding path to resolve complaints. Madam Speaker, if we go on to Clause 19, Codes of Conduct, it's another clause I will look at. This bill authorizes the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to issue enforceable codes of conduct. So there's a code of conduct in terms of how the banks can do their business, or financial services for that matter. So covering product design, pricing methodology, fraud handling, and compliant resolution with, of course, penalties for non-compliance. So, Madam Speaker, what is the bigger picture? These changes are not made, of course, in isolation. They are made to strengthen financial consumer protections, so people can have confidence in their banks and that the banks are not ripping them off. The bigger picture is that this amendment, or these amendments, are being done to combat illicit financial activity so that St. Kitts and Nevis, our federation, can remain a trusted jurisdiction to do business. It is meant to improve governance so that boards are accountable and risks are managed. It is also important for enhancement of regulatory powers. So now the regulator can address problems before they become crises. There are many situations where the bank or the regulator can pick up. Dr. Douglas, I just realized we're on the same tie. This is a plan?
Great minds think
I just look over there and see. But yes, so this is a bill that will enhance regulatory powers so that when the bank picks up a problem, it can use its regulatory oversight to avert potential crises. Sometimes I was saying that a regulator can see things that can potentially take place or potentially happen, but they do not have the legislative power or authority to do anything about it. And also, Madam Speaker, these changes and these amendments will promote public accountability so that the system works for the many and not just the few. Madam Speaker, these reforms place us firmly in line with what is called the Basel 3 standards and the Financial Stability Board principles. And so they give a signal to the world, Madam Speaker, that we are serious about sound banking and sustainable growth. So, Madam Speaker, as I wrap up my brief contribution to this banking amendment bill, which has quite a bit of sections. I have not gone through all in detail, but I picked out some which I thought were important to discuss. The bill is really a balanced package. It gives banks the clarity and the scope to innovate responsibly. So it provides that framework that the banks can advance with the times in the banking market. But it also gives the regulator the authority and tools to act decisively with proper oversight and regulation without hampering the innovation of banking services. And importantly, Madam Speaker, it gives the public stronger rights. It gives the public better access and also real avenues for redress. Because sometimes it is often felt like the banks or financial services are so big that there is nowhere or nobody to complain to. So the bill gives the public the stronger rights, better access, and real avenues for redress. So, Madam Speaker, as I close, this combination of the banks getting clarity for innovation, the regulator having the tools, and the public having its rights and avenues for redress. This combination, along with confidence, inclusion, and growth, is exactly what our sustainable island state economy needs to ensure that as we expand, as we seek to broaden our economic returns, that we have a sound financial infrastructure that facilitates this at the highest level. And so therefore, Madam Speaker, with your leave, I commend this bill to this Honourable House, and I'm proud to second it. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 3, second of the bill. I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 6.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity for me to say a few words of support on this bill that is before us, that is the Banking Amendment Act 2025. Madam Speaker, maybe it's part of me, but I like to put things into perspective. And so I reflect on what we did in the bill before, in the sense that the government is working very closely with regard to its mandate and how quickly we would be able to deliver on our mandate. In fact, it is not by chance that these pieces of legislation are coming around the 3rd anniversary of the life of this government, having been returned to office back in August 5th, 2022. Our mandate has always been to continue to consolidate our democracy and also to ensure that whatever this country has to offer, it would ensure that all can be the beneficiaries of what we have to offer. A moment ago, we reflected on how important it was going to be to establish specific development zones in order to pursue our mandate. Our mandate, that is, to ensure that we develop a sustainable island state. And there has been an agenda that has been well documented by way or through which we would be able to achieve this. Today, now, I would say, we are looking at one of the important sectors, which was referenced earlier, with regard to how the new economy was going to be driven in order to assist in our development as a country and as a people. We said that the financial services sector, the international financial services sector, is in fact one of those drivers in the new economy. The new economy, which I outlined, is a services economy. Together with diversified agriculture, there would be international financial services, information communication services, and of course, we mentioned how we would be able to bring all of these together to achieve our sustainable island state. It is important to note, therefore, that the central bank, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, is a partner with this government to achieve these specific goals. Because by constantly going to the existing legislation with regard to financial services, we are ensuring, together with the central bank, that we do it right. I want to use this opportunity to commend the mover of the bill, Minister of Finance, Prime Minister, and of course the Governor of the Central Bank, and the team at the Central Bank, which is paying close attention to what our own development agenda is, and is working with us to achieve these specific goals of the agenda. And so, as both the mover and the seconder would have outlined, the special features of this bill that speak to what I have just said. To facilitate the development, to expand, to consolidate the international financial services sector by ensuring that the local banking regulations are updated. In fact, I don't believe we would ever be able to compete internationally within the sphere of financial services if we did not have the central bank to guide and direct us accordingly. And so these amendments that we are making today would have come as a result of consultation with various entities, the Monetary Council, the Central Bank itself, and of course the Ministry of Finance in this government, to ensure that we constantly update the existing regulations, the existing parameters through which we will work to ensure that we can achieve an important driver of the economy, the international financial services sector, to ensure that the regulations and the laws are modernized, that they can be observed by any international organization that is paying attention to what we're doing here, and ensure that we are not put on any colored list, whether black or gray or yellow or white, to ensure that we are not going to be put on any of these colored lists that would in any way retard or damage what we are seeking to achieve, to operate and compete within the international financial space with our own little economic driver that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so, with reference of a number of things that were said before, the technology is critically important. We would not be able to achieve this without continued improvement in the technology. That is why, a few years back, we sat with our colleagues in the Eastern Caribbean, solicited the support of the World Bank, and said to Cable and Wireless, you have to dismantle the monopoly that you have. You are retarding the progress of our country. You have to go up here, there, and everywhere to be able to make a phone call. Give us the freedom to use our cell phones. Let us be able to do banking in the palm of our hand. As I used to say around the country, from BlackBerry, etc. That is what is important. The technology. We're ahead. That is what they don't understand. You should be able to do your banking and provide the services and receive the services by way of your palm, wherever you are. So the technology, again, what was the driver in that economy that we were talking about? To ensure that information communication technology was going to be a part of the new services economy that we said we would create. And now we can see why. Because without the technology of today, we could not compete successfully, and we could not insulate our own financial sector, banking sector specifically, from those who seek to create criminal mischief within this particular sphere of operation. The reliability, I want to confirm that one of the hallmarks of success must be the reliability of the services that you have. And so the central bank, with this kind of legislation assisting us with, would be able to get the reliability. There has to be proper regulation. The regulatory standards are also outlined. There has to be, to a large extent, again, it must meet international standards. And to a large extent, I would want to say that without these, we could not successfully move towards the attainment of the services sector that we were trying to achieve. Again, diversified agriculture. We closed the industry, the sugar industry. They said we couldn't do it. We did it successfully. And we diversified the economy, diversified agriculture, introduced reliable information communication technology services, international financial services. It's a services economy, mainly, however, driven by hospitality and tourism services. Madam Speaker, we are well on our way to achieve our utopia. We are well on our way to achieve the sustainable island state that we continue to speak about, where the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment, together with the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Finance, working hand in hand to achieve these specific goals. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 6. Is there another presenter? I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8, mover of the bill, to do his wrap-up.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to wrap up the debate on a bill shortly entitled Banking Amendment Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, there isn't much more to say, except, and I want to thank the member from number 6 for his intervention as well, and also member from number 3. And this is, of course, in keeping with modern approaches to banking, so that our jurisdiction is in keeping with the trends so that we are not left behind and would further strengthen our possibilities of diversifying our economy and creating a more stable everyday economy here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, Madam Speaker, may it please you.
Thank you to the honourable member, St. Christopher of the bill, St. Christopher 8, mover of the bill, who just did his wrap-up. The question is that the Banking Amendment Bill 2025 be read a second time. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Banking Act, Cap 21.01, otherwise known as the Banking Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Banking Amendment Bill 2025 has been read a second time. House moves to committee stage. Madam Clerk.
The arrangement of sections.
The question is that the arrangement of sections stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clauses 1 through 8.
The question is that clauses 1 through 8 stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clause 9.
Just a second. Yes.
So, Madam Chair, it is proposed to amend the Banking Amendment Bill as follows. In Clause 9(6)(t), Subclause 1(a), Paragraph B, by replacing Paragraph B as follows. Earns an annual income not exceeding the amount that shall be specified by the central bank in codes of conduct.
Very well, no objections to that. Very well, the question is that Clause 9, as amended, stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clauses 10 through 19.
The question is that clauses 10 through to 19 stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
The question is that the enacting clause stands part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title.
The question is that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House resumes. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, I rise with your leave to report that the bill has passed through committee stage with amendments, and I further move that the bill be read a third time and passed into law. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Seconder. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 3.
Madam Speaker, I rise the second motion.
The question is that the bill shortly entitled Banking Amendment Bill 2025 be read a third time and passed into law. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Banking Act, Cap 21.01, otherwise known as the Banking Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Banking Amendment Bill 2025 has been read a third time and passed into law. Honourable members, the upcoming bill is quite short. I suggest we push through. Any objections to that? Very well. Recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 8.
have read a second time in this Honorable House and lead the debate on a bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation, or ECAMC, is a regional institution set up by the members of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union to take on and resolve distressed loans from banks and other financial institutions. Its work helps keep our financial system steady, protects depositors, and keep credit flowing to households and businesses, Madam Speaker. Under our current law, Section 5 of the ECAMC Agreement Act says that Banking Act Cap 2101 doesn't apply to ECAMC at all. That means none of the protections or procedures in the Banking Act apply to ECAMC, whether they are relevant to its operations or not. So, Madam Speaker, what we seek here is to make sure that protection is covered on all fronts, or guaranteed on all fronts. This bill changes that in a targeted way. It will amend Section 5A so that two specific parts of the Banking Act will now apply to ECAMC. These provisions set out the rules for winding up a bank, how a receiver is appointed, how assets are managed, and how the process is completed. Madam Speaker, by applying Part 10 to ECAMC, it ensures that if ECAMC ever needs to be wound up itself, there's a clear, tested, and regionally consistent process in law, Madam Speaker. Let us look at Section 178. Now, the secrecy of information. This section requires directors, officers, and employees of a bank to keep customer information confidential, Madam Speaker. Very important, except in certain permitted circumstances. But confidentiality in the banking sector is extremely important. People don't want to have the money in a bank and other people talking about, how much you got there because the information was leaked. But applying this rule to ECAMC strengthens the legal protection of sensitive information it handles when managing distressed assets, reassuring the public that privacy is safeguarded. Madam Speaker, these things are critically important if we are to have a system that people trust. A banking system, a financial system without trust is a system that really cannot function to its optimal. Because all those who are in the realm of economy knows that at the end of the day, the most important factor in any economic system is trust. That must always be safeguarded. So, Madam Speaker, in other words, we are moving from a position where none of the Banking Act applies to ECAMC to a position where only the two most important provisions for its governance and accountability, Part 10 and Section 178, will apply. This approach ensures ECAMC operates under rules that make sense for its mandate without burdening it with banking provisions that do not fit its role. At the same time, however, it gives the public two critical protections: a proper winding up process if needed, and strong confidentiality safeguards at all times, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this amendment did not come out of isolation. It is part of a coordinated regional reform developed by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank legal team, consulted on by all member states and approved unanimously by the Monetary Council, the finance ministers of our currency union. These are who make up the Monetary Council. That regional consensus ensures that ECAMC operates under the same clear rules in every ECCU country. So to sum up, Madam Speaker, none of the Banking Act applied to ECAMC. After this bill, only Part 10 and Section 178 will apply. And these sections, of course, as I said before, will safeguard our people. Why does it matter? We give ECAMC a fit-for-purpose legal framework while protecting public confidence through clear winding up rules and confidentiality obligations, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is a short bill, and I just simply want to wish this bill a safe passage. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the honourable member for St. Christopher 8, mover of the bill.
Madam Speaker,
The mic, please, honourable.
Okay.
I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 3.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to give my support to this bill before the Honourable House and second the motion to have it read for a second time. As the mover mentioned, this is a particularly short bill. In fact, just one important clause, but it has a tremendous impact on our overall banking sector. So on the surface, Madam Speaker, it may seem to be a very simple amendment, but it addresses, pardon me, an important matter for stability and clarity of our financial system. It seeks to amend Section 5A of the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Cooperation Agreement Act in order to define clearly how the Banking Act applies to the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation, or ECAMC. So, Madam Speaker, the ECAMC is really no ordinary institution. It was created by our Eastern Caribbean Currency Union through a multilateral agreement to deal with one of the most challenging issues that any banking sector can face. That is the problem of distressed or non-performing assets. These are loans and other assets that, if left unresolved, can erode bank balance sheets, they can threaten depositors' confidence, and they can weaken the stability of the entire financial sector. So the ECAMC's job is really to step in and perhaps even acquire these troubled assets from financial institutions, manage them professionally, and work to recover value over time. Now, in doing so, it relieves our banks and our credit unions of a heavy burden and allows them to refocus on what their core mission is, of course, which is serving customers, providing credit, and driving economic growth. However, Madam Speaker, over time a question arose, as the mover mentioned. To what extent should the provisions of the Banking Act apply to this very specialized regional corporation? So both the ECAMC and our domestic regulators recognize the need for this legal clarity, and that is why we're here today on the heels of amending the Banking Act. Without it, we risk uncertainty in enforcement. We risk, or there were gaps in oversight and even the potential for conflicting obligations. So that is why this amendment is so important, although it's just a one-pager. It will substitute the existing section with new wording to make it clear that the Banking Act applies to the ECAMC except for Part X and Section 178 of the Banking Act. This targeted exception recognizes the ECAMC's unique nature and specialized mandate, while ensuring that it still operates within the same robust regulatory environment that underpins our wider banking sector. So, Madam Speaker, this is not just a matter of what you would say tidying up the law. It is also about strengthening regulatory harmony across our Eastern Caribbean financial space. Madam Speaker, by ensuring our laws align, we close loopholes, we make enforcement easier, and importantly, we send a strong message to investors, to depositors, and our international partners that our financial system is not only stable, but it is coherent, and it is also professionally managed. So, Madam Speaker, of course, this amendment does not appear in isolation. It has been the subject of consultations within the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCU Monetary Council, and of course our own Ministry of Finance. These are the key players in maintaining the health of our financial system, and the endorsement, of course, gives this amendment both credibility and, of course, urgency. So, in the end, Madam Speaker, our aim here is clear. We want a banking and asset management environment that is transparent, that is consistent, and importantly, that is trusted. And this bill moves us further in that direction. It ensures that the ECAMC can continue its vital work without ambiguity and with the full force of a clear legal framework behind it. So for these reasons, Madam Speaker, without going on for too long, I am pleased to support this bill, and I urge the honourable members of this House to do the same. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the honourable member for St. Christopher 3, the second of the bill. Is there another presenter? Doesn't appear that way. Mover? I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 8, mover of the bill, to do his wrap-up.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, once again, I rise to wrap up the debate on bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, I think the point has been reiterated and reinforced by multiple presenters with respect to these two bills that are regional in scope and really geared towards protecting our banking sector and especially our people who participate in this very crucial and vital sector. And so, Madam Speaker, there is nothing much more to add except for me to say that I wish this bill safe passage.
Thank you to the honourable member for St. Christopher 8, mover of the bill, who just did his wrap-up. The question is that the bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025 be read a second time. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Act, Cap 21.23, otherwise known as the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025 has been read a second time. House moves to committee stage. Madam Clerk.
The arrangement of sections.
The question is that the arrangement of sections stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clauses 1, 2, and 3.
The question is that clauses 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
The question is that the enacting clause stands part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title.
The question is that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House resumes. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, once again, I rise to report that the bill has passed through committee stage without amendments, and I further move that the bill be read a third time and pass into law. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Seconder. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 3.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Very well. The question is that the bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025 be read a third time and passed into law. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation Agreement Act, Cap 21.23, otherwise known as the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Cooperation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Cooperation Agreement Amendment Bill 2025 has been read a third time and passed into law. This is where you hit the table. Very well. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Motions, resolutions, adjournment.
I recognize the honorable member for St. Christopher 8.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise once again on this adjournment just to highlight a number of things. Allow me to congratulate the Connery Football Club and the Keon Football Club as they now move into the final four of the Football Association's league. I want to really congratulate them. Again, as I always say, in number 8, we always have at least 50% in the final four. Always. So the chances to win are always 50% at any given time. And I want to take this opportunity also to congratulate the St. Peter's Football Club for its tremendous play during the season. They were 5th and they missed the final four by just one game, but it was always tight. They won their last game, but it happens that Connery also won their last game, and so it had to be either St. Peter's or Connery. But nonetheless, the teams have performed well, and I really want to congratulate them on their tremendous performance. That is what I would have today on the adjournment, Madam Speaker. May it please you.
Thank you to the honorable member for St. Christopher 8. I recognize the honorable member for St. Christopher 1.
Madam Speaker, on the adjournment, I would like to extend sympathies to the Buchanan family in Taylors on the passing of Josiane. That's a solid family up in that area. And of course, I would also express sympathies to the Thomas family there on Baker's Corner on the passing of retired police Double PC Paulette Thomas. I don't remember her married title. Both of them would be laid to rest next week, Madam Speaker, and my prayers are with the entire family. And to all other persons who are grieving at this time. And I think while I was out, I heard Mother Delaney. Mother Delaney, as I would refer to her at the village, she passed. I would like to extend sympathies to the entire family on the passing. 98 years, she batted well. I too at this time, since you're on football, and Brian Francis over there looking at me, to commend the Honda Newtown Football Club for once again making our community feel extremely proud of them as they now move back up in the big league that we dominated for some time in our good football years. We are hoping to do much better. So I want to congratulate all of the players and the coaches, etc. I also want to, Madam Speaker, to congratulate all of those persons who were successful in attending the various universities. This is the time when our students and adults leave to go to universities. I want to, as the Minister of Education, to really congratulate them and wish them well and urge them to return to continue to develop our federation. I must as well congratulate in particular those students who will be going off to Taiwan, and to continue to thank the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for their support over these 42 years. Because when I became the Minister of Education, we had a situation where just about 10 students were exposed to Taiwan in various areas of studies. But I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that this year is the largest number, and we are sending off 28 students to Taiwan. First in the history, so many will be going off. And I had the honor of meeting the ambassador earlier this morning, Ambassador Tao, and I expressed my gratitude to him and his government, and of course have already put in an application for an increase in scholarships for next year. We also had 19 scholarships from Cuba. And I was told this morning, if by chance anybody might be still interested in going, especially in the area of medicine, they will be able to make that possible. Southern University, Madam Speaker, you know, sometime last year, we signed a memorandum of understanding with that university. I'm happy to report we have 16 students who are going to Southern University, or 13, and 3 is already there. Of course, there are many opportunities, other opportunities, and we're encouraging our young people to take advantage of these opportunities. We have scholarships in Morocco, and the government continues to assist in economic costs for our students who choose to study at the University of the West Indies, Madam Speaker. But I must share in this honorable house that we are yet again making history in education and also in the region, because next month we have 24 of our teachers. They would receive scholarships from the Open University of Tanzania. Sometime last year I signed a memorandum of understanding, and we had that virtual agreement, and I am pleased, Madam Speaker, that as the Minister of Education I was able, through UNESCO, and I must commend the former Secretary General, my English teacher, Mrs. Dorothy Grant Warner, and of course our hard-working Ambassador Doyle in Paris, who continue to push for us in various areas. So I want to say congratulations to those teachers. They would be notified, and we are hoping to start this in September. It doesn't stop there, Madam Speaker, because we are in a discussion with another university in Kenya, and we want to organize, after the review of the Memorandum of Understanding, so that they can assist us in our TVET advancement studies, Madam Speaker. I must also say to you, Madam Speaker, that after decades of waiting and talk, later next month, we have a cohort of students who would be receiving their NVQ certification. This is historic, Madam Speaker. The first time it will be happening in St. Kitts. And wrapping up, Madam Speaker, I want to put East Bastille, the constituency that I proudly represent, that next month is our usual festival, and we are going to have our festival kicking off on the 6th with our health walk, and we are going to be engaging all our sporting our sporting clubs, our non-profit organizations that are in the community to be a part of the celebration, because there comes a time when you have to separate the politics from community. And we are going to have our karaoke night, and of course many prizes to be won. I know you're a good singer, Madam Speaker, so I'll give you a personal invitation. And we are going to be doing that at one of our leading bars in the community, at Barry's Bar and Grill. Yes, Barry, I'm just putting it out there. Thanks for permission. September 16th, of course, is our street jam, our Juve morning. And then on 19th, and it's on September as well, we'll have our heroes recognition nationally and in the communities. And then the 19th of September is our street parade. And we are going to make sure that it is an improvement to last year, because every year you must get better. I must say though, Madam Speaker, I had a joke because I was doing some house to house and I was approached, I don't want to say attacked, or a demand came from some young people that they want sugar ban for the street parade. So I'm going to be looking for sponsorship, Madam Speaker, so expect a donation letter as well. And we're having a grill and chill on our bingo night. This is going to be big because we're going to be giving out a lot of money. Those of you who are lucky to get your lucky bingo cards, you'll be able to win not only cash, but also other prizes. And I'll be expecting to be able to announce that a prize came down from Nevis. I'll be looking forward to my colleagues on the other side to donate, whether it's a small fridge or blender, whatever you give, we will recognize you guys. And the Sunday afternoon is usually a nice afternoon where we go right there on the Newtown Bay Road and we do our family community street sports festival, including some aquatics. I don't know the condition, what the water will be like down in that area. But in the past, we have had our swimming, our boat rides, and our street football, cricket, tennis, hand tennis, and those kind of stuff. We are going to be doing that, I think, last year as part of the police community. JESOC group came, and of course, they won. So I want to commend them, and we're going to invite them, and we're going to try to get others so it don't look as if it's only the one could be winning. But the presence of the police in the community is always a good one, and I'm happy when we invite them and the fire services as well, that they show up. And of course, we're going to wrap up the celebration with honoring our seniors as we normally would do. So that's just a little plug for the committee members for the Newtown Festival. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 1. I recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 10.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to rise briefly on the adjournment to show my appreciation and the Nevis Island administration's appreciation for all who would have been a part of the recently concluded Culturama Festival on Nevis. We would have climaxed activities last week, Tuesday, and it was another successful Culturama Festival. So I just want to rise on this occasion to say thanks to all who would have been involved, all who took part in any way. I want to say a special congratulations to all of the winners from the various activities. And of course, not only the winners, but all who took part. It wasn't, the festival could not have been successful without the participation of all who were part of the various activities and competitions. I want to say a special thanks, of course, to our sponsors. We're always happy that when you come on board to partner with us, we say thanks to the committee, the hard-working committee, for putting together another successful event. And, of course, we want to say a special thanks as well to the persons from the health team who were there every night to ensure everything went well, to the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force for keeping the peace. And apart from the little problems we had on last lap, I would say generally the festival was pretty much accident and incident and crime-free. It's a pity we had those little scuffles on last lap to my everything else, but everything else prior to that went exceptionally well. I want to just especially thank our patrons who came out in their numbers, including the patrons from St. Kitts who came over in their numbers as usual. Of course, there's no Culturama unless our brothers and sisters come over and support us. And we are very happy and appreciate the support that always come from our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts. And of course, those who came from the diaspora, those from Nevis who came out and support, we want to say a very hearty thank you to all of you. And we'll see you next year for C52. May it please you, Madam President. Madam Speaker, sorry.
Thank you. I recognize the honourable member for St. Christopher 3.
Madam Speaker, with your leave, I rise to make a brief contribution on this adjournment. Firstly, to extend heartfelt condolences to one of the matriarchs of the village community, Mrs. Doreen Delaney. I think she was batting strong at about 98. Yes, should have been 99 in October. I want to extend my heartfelt sympathies to the entire Delaney family and the community. She has been a stakeholder. She has been an enterprise in the village community for many years. When I would visit her, she lived on Keon Street. So when I would visit her, she would always remind me of the times when my father used to take me on his shoulder to camps, because we used to walk from our home on Keon Street there just by Greenlands, and we would walk down at morning times to camps where I would spend my days, and she would always remind me about that, how long she's been sitting out on the veranda looking at everything that happened in the village community. So I want to extend, we are going to miss her, her keen memory. It was amazing. She remembered everything up until the time of her passing, and I was able to visit and extend sympathies to the family, her children in particular, who obviously would be going through a hard time, but acknowledging, of course, that she did do a good innings. In fact, one of her children told me maybe she could have lent some of the runs she made to the West Indies cricket team. Yeah, that's what one of her children told me, because, she was batting strong, and we need some of that at the West Indies level. So my heart and my prayers go out to the family and community of Mrs. Doreen Delaney. Also, I want to extend on behalf of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, in particular the Ministry of Post, on the passing of James Thomas, who was a postman in the area of Sadler's to Christchurch. I think the funeral service would have passed already on Thursday. We want to extend sympathies to his family, but importantly, the communities that he served for so many years. I also want to, at this time, Madam Speaker, the member for number 8 rose to give congratulations to, and I'll give him a pass, teams that are in his constituency. But I will say he forgot to mention to give congratulations to the champions of the Premier League this year. Number 1 in the league, the Village Superstars. And so I want, on behalf of the community of constituency number 3 in particular, West Bastia, and the village community, to give congratulations to the Village Superstars FC for winning the league of this year's Premier Division competition. And we now move forward into the Final 4. our spirits were, we intended a much happier time last night, but I have to, my colleagues over on Nevis, I don't know what it is they set up, but our last game was to be against Bath Village last night, and Bath did not show up.
Oh dear.
Bath did not show up. And so we couldn't give the last 5 or 10 goals that we had to give in the season.
Oh my.
I can take them over. You could take them over? So we were hoping for, a nice match to cement our place. It's always better to earn those points than to be given them, no matter how important the points may be. It's always a much better thing to earn the points. So I want to congratulate the team for a very, very good season. We have been generally consistent. We have had some injuries. One of our main players, who is actually still the leading, he was performing so well. He's still the leading goal scorer, even though he hasn't been able to participate much in the second round. I think he has 16 goals or something like that. And still ahead, that is Kimari Rogers. We miss him, and we want this championship, of course, not only for the village community, but also for him. And so I want to wish the team all the best. This is crunch time now. This is where everything counts. Everything is on the line. And we're looking forward to join St. Paul's, as we usually do, on number 7. Because St. Paul's has 7 championships. We have 6. And last year we allowed them to, in deference to the member from number 6, we allowed them to go to number 7 first. But we have now extended that grace, and now we will go for number 7 for ourselves. So, Madam Speaker, with that, I know you have a particular supporter in this ring. We wish you all the best in your endeavors, but it's village again. All right, so, Madam Speaker, with your leave, I now move a motion to have this House stand adjourned, sign, dine.
Thank you, Honorable. I recognize the Honorable Member of St.
And I
Christopher
second
I.
that motion, Honorable Speaker.
Question is that this House stands adjourned, sign and die. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. House stands adjourned, sign and die.